LaTosha Brown is back with us, the co-founder of Black Voters Matter and also the 2019 Harvard Institute of Politics Fellow. She's in Atlanta this morning. LaTosha, welcome back to our program and Happy New Year.
Thank you for having me. Happy New Year.
Thank you. You were listening to that tape. I'm sure it's not the first time you've heard it. It's been played pretty much nonstop since it was released yesterday. What are your thoughts overall on what you heard in that tape conversation between the president and Georgia's Secretary of State?
Well, first and foremost, it's election fraud. So I actually think that he should be impeached. He should not be allowed to even finish out his term. That is voter election fraud. You know, when we talk about kind of Watergate was just the president literally listening to the Democratic Party plans. Here is an attempt by the president to actually thwart the election. He is literally as anti-democratic as one can be. And so I think it points to a number of things. Number one, Georgia is ground zero, is a state that has been known for election fraud, that in 2018 election suppression, in 2018, what you saw is a number of thousands of voters, particularly African-American voters, their votes were suppressed. And so I think, and as a result, we saw a governor that win the race that I don't think that he should have won. But here we are hearing the president to go back to Republicans and saying, he's essentially saying, you all know how to cheat. So I'm not understanding why you just won't cheat for me. And so what I do think is that we need to understand that it is in spite of that Black voters are turning out in spite of the voter suppression. There were over 200,000 votes that were dropped from the voting rolls just in October in the last year, right? Primarily, many of them being African-American voters that had never moved. And so what we're seeing is atrocious. This has been the behavior of Donald Trump ever since he's been in office, which is why he's lost. But he is literally going back out, trying to get officials in Georgia to cheat the election. We've had 4 different counts in the state of Georgia, yet he continues. Now he's saying to find votes. We all know what that means.
Find votes. Yeah, it's important to use that as the word. Find those votes, enough votes to give him enough to surpass by 1 the number that Joe Biden received. What impact do you think this tape, and as everyone learns about it, what impact do you think what he's trying to do will have on the Senate runoffs tomorrow?
I think it will have an impact around Democratic voters and Republican voters. I think that Democratic voters will literally be turned off on this process, are so frustrated with Donald Trump. All he does is he continues to stir the hornet's nest. And just like we saw this state flip, I think primarily because he was leading the ticket, that folks in this state are saying, no, we completely, wholly reject Donald Trump, the majority of voters in this state. And so I think once again, he's going to agitate the field. And I think you're going to see some more Democratic voters that are really inspired to go out and vote. But I also think what is interesting is the Republican vote as well, that the person that you saw heard him berate and was asking to find these votes is actually another Republican, a Republican who had openly supported him, but basically said, my hands are tied, there's nothing else I can do, right? Yet he's actually been very disruptive. And so I think that is key. I think at the end of the day, Donald Trump shows that he doesn't care about anybody. He doesn't care about this country. He doesn't even care about his own political party. He cares about one thing, and that's himself. And so I think that what we're going to see is a hit with the Republican Party as well. I think that he's being very disruptive, and it certainly doesn't help his party.
So whether there is an impact on Republican turnout, we will see. But the numbers that I've been looking at so far, LaTosha, are record number of people showing up for early voting. Now, Georgia, just so everybody in Canada understands, doesn't register voters by party, as I understand it. So you can't tell as outsiders who the voters are supporting. But as you work and as you understand things so much more clearly there, based on how many people you see voting already and who is voting, what do you think is going to happen tomorrow?
There are 3 million people who have already cast their votes in Georgia. That is extraordinary. For a runoff election, you normally see, particularly in the African-American community, you normally see a 40% drop-off, in the people who come out and vote. What you're actually seeing is you're seeing the overperformance of Black voters in the state of Georgia. We actually, 34% of the vote electorate, are Black voters who have showed up, which is actually we only make up 30% of the population, which means that Black voters are overperforming. So yes, tomorrow is election day, but if it's any indicator around what will happen on tomorrow, if we continue the trend that is happening right now, I think what we're going to see is we're going to see a major upset in the state of Georgia. I believe that there are more people in this state that actually align with the Democratic values. And I think we're going to see a possible, it's an uphill battle, but it's going to be a close race. But if we see any indicator of what we've seen so far, I think it's a real possibility that those Democratic seats will be won on tomorrow.
So that tomorrow it would be then Reverend Warnock and John Ossoff who would win those 2 Senate seats based on what you're seeing and what your expectations are. Sounds like you're pretty confident of that. And then remind us, because normally Canada, the rest of the world, wouldn't be paying a whole lot of attention to a runoff Senate seat election in the state of Georgia, but we certainly are this time. For you, why is this important and what are the stakes?
So there are, we've already had our elections, and so many of the Congress has actually been sworn in. But there are 2 seats in the Senate that will determine whether the Republican Party or the Democratic Party actually has power, right? It will be if both of those seats, if those 2 seats, the Democrats win that seat, then what that means is that you have half Republican, half Democrat, but you also have Kamala Harris, who is a Democrat and will be the vice president, and she'll be the tiebreaker. So the Democrats will have an advantage, and therefore our new president-elect, Joe Biden, and Vice President Kamala Harris will actually have a Congress, a Senate, and a House that can work with them. You know, and on the other side, that if these 2 seats go to the Republican, or even if one of the seats go to the Republicans will still maintain power and control in the Senate. And what we've seen in recent years, the reason why it's such a important race is what we've seen in recent years is that the senators, the Republican Party have really been disruptive. When it has been we saw that under President Obama, we've seen that actually with Donald Trump. And so I think it is going to be critical. These seats literally will determine what political party has power in Congress for the next 4 years.
And get that agenda through if you're a Democratic supporter. I know how busy you've been in terms of getting out and having campaign events throughout the time since November. Can I assume you're going to be busy tomorrow? Because everyone keeps saying turnout's going to be key. Field game's going to be key. Will you be trying to get people out to the polls tomorrow, LaTosha?
Oh, absolutely. Tomorrow is V-Day. Tomorrow is the day that will make the decision of what happens going forward. We're working in 50 counties all throughout the state of Georgia. We're working diligently to make sure that we turn people out to vote, because I do believe this will be a turnout game.
Thank you so much for the time this morning. Great to check back in with you, and we'll be following Georgia very closely. LaTosha Brown in Atlanta. Thanks again.